Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Foreman community demo. If you have any questions, we'll be on IRC on the Foreman. You can also ask on the YouTube live chat. And just a reminder to up the video quality for YouTube. The default is not great for our screen sharing. For those of you who are wondering, where is Greg and now what I'm doing here? So Greg was at Open Source Summit of this week in Edinburgh. He had 2 talks there. I'm sure he'll be glad to tell you about them next week when he's actually back, but today he's still out. We have a very busy demo today, so I'll actually continue with a short message about CFPs and conferences, and then we'll start right away. So we have Raul giving a Foreman talk at the Freenode live conference, the 3rd and 4th of November. DevConf, if you still want to submit a talk to DevConf, you have time until this Friday, so hurry up. That's pretty much, you have today, and I don't know what time it closes tomorrow, so hopefully tomorrow, but that's it. And Config Management Camp, CFP is also open until the 1st of December. So we'll start right away. Oh, and Foreman 120. So Foreman 120 RC1 is coming soon, hopefully this week. It's being worked on right now. And we'll start with Ian talking about rapid bare metal sand routing with M2. Ian, to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So my name is Ian Blue. This summer, I've been working on introducing a new bare metal plugin to Foreman. I've been working as part of the Boston University Red Hat Collaboratory, and from that, I've been tasked with integrating one of the research group called Mass Open Clouds projects called M2. So I'll start off right away then with showing you just some quick slides about what is M2 before I get into the actual demo. Okay, so first off here, so what is M2? So M2 is a service for rapidly provisioning and reprovisioning bare metal servers. The motivation for M2 is to be able to move hardware between tenants in minutes. So I'll give an example use case here. So imagine a data center with 150 nodes. 50 of them strictly run OpenStack, and 100 of them are multi-purpose machines that users can reserve using this M2 system. Through M2, users can provision and register any of the hardware images under their project. Now, the nodes, so those nodes that aren't directly being used by, or the nodes that are being used by M2, if they're not directly being used by any particular user at the moment, the idea is that they can get re-provisioned, perhaps to support the OpenStack cluster. So we like to call it elastic hardware. That's our main motivation for it. So let me get into the details here on this slide. So in the diagram, I'll go through some of it. Some of it's not completely important to the integration. So M2, firstly, has a repository of images in our implementation stored in a Ceph cluster. So these images are stored as golden images. An administrator will put the golden images in there, say CentOS, Fedora, etc. And users, when they interact with them, will be able to clone from those disks, but never modify the base ones. So you can always expect the golden image is just how you want it. So users through the M2 API or CLI can interact with these images once they're given to their particular user project by an administrator. They can do things like clone the images, they can snapshot them, and they can delete them or move them from project to project to share with other users. Now, for the actual hardware provisioning portion of this, what actually goes on is a user can send a call to M2 to take one of their images, clone it, and then present it as a SAN bootable target. Here we're using a TGT iSCSI server. So M2 also does orchestration. However, for the purpose of integrating M2 with Foreman, M2, or Foreman in this case, is doing all the orchestration for DHCP, iPXE, TFTP, etc. Okay, now also in the top left corner, I'll mention that there's a service called Hill, the hardware isolation layer. I won't get too much into it, but it is important for changing. It's a service that we have for changing the VLAN that the provisioning, that the bare metal is on, so we can actually change the provisioning server. I'll show you in a demo, you'll see me use it quickly, but the idea here is just that you're changing the provisioning network that your bare metal is on. Okay, so next, just getting into what I actually had integrated here. So taking this sample Foreman layout, I've had to add 2 plugins. Firstly, there's a Foreman core plugin that introduces M2 as a compute resource, and then there is an M2 plugin, an M2 Smart Proxy plugin, so Foreman can actually talk to the M2 API. So with that said, the general workflow of my integration here. So firstly, a user will send their host information to Foreman, and then Foreman will send the image that the user requests down to M2. And then what M2 will do is it'll take the image name, it'll take the project, and it'll clone the disk, it'll create the target, and then send it back to Foreman. And then Foreman takes that target and puts it into an iPXE boot config file. And then when the machine boots up, it'll see that iSCSI target, and it'll have a sandboot command, and it'll run right off the M2 image that's in the Ceph cluster. So that way, this provisioning is extremely fast. It can happen in minutes. And what's important here is the reprovisioning aspect. So you can have users sharing this hardware. They can be switching from OS to OS within minutes rather than having to go through a whole tear down and build up, which could take a while. So what I will show now, before I show, I do have a demo video just because the bare metal booting will take too long for this purpose. But let me just show you what we have here. So firstly, with the compute resource. So Foreman here, you can see if you create a compute resource, M2 is now a provider. You can go down here and select M2, and then you can pick which M2 smart proxy you want. I have a few here. So I'll go into one of my smart proxies I've already, or sorry, one of my compute resources I've already created. And the important bit here is that you can see we're importing images from M2. So if I go to the create images bit, you can see a drop-down list here. This is reading directly from my M2 server that's running, and that's coming over the smart proxy. And now just to peek into how the host creation works. So if we go to create a host, and we select M2, then you go over to the operating system. And what's interesting here, now these are 2 operating systems that are associated with M2 images. There's a new provisioning method I had to add because since this is M2 is added as a compute resource, but instead of being mainly for virtual machines, it's for bare metal, I had to make sure that both network-based orchestration and image orchestration ran at the same time. So for example, I can actually pick one of the images down here, say CentOS 7, and then that will actually build the host. So now that you've seen that, let me run a demo that I've pre-run here, and I'll walk you through it as the video is going. So in this demo, I have 2 tenants who are going to be sharing a single server, and they'll be installing their operating systems between them. So first at time 0, what I'm doing is we're just setting up a CentOS 6.7 image. Now, what I'm going to show you in a second is that when the provisioning template pops up, you'll see that the SAN target, the iSCSI target, got put in there. So the setup here is much like normal bare metal for Foreman. Okay, so that's loaded. Now we go over to our template. And what we see here is the iSCSI target, iqn.en-foreman-clone.com.rh.image5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the M2 console, the CLI, and I'll show you that the image was created there in a disk. So there it is. There's the image name. And we keep the name in Ceph same as the iSCSI target name. OK, so now we're going to boot up this node. And this, of course, is set up. And there we have it. So 9 minutes, 14 seconds in real time, we booted CentOS 6. Now we're going to use that Hill service that I mentioned to you before. All I'm doing is switching the provisioning network, switching the VLAN. And one thing I'll note is that each tenant has their own Foreman and their own M2 instance. OK, so now we're on tenant 2. I'm running through the same things, but now tenant 2 is using CentOS 7. Okay. And here's the image. A new image got created. This time it has a different name. And there's the image. And then here we're going to boot up CentOS 7. This is tenant 2. Excellent. OK, so 20 minutes and 1 second in real time, we have booted now CentOS 7. And that includes all the time messing around with Foreman to get the setup correct. And then tenant 2 is going to log in. And then we're going to switch back to tenant 1 just to prove the point. So again, going back, changing the provisioning network. There we go. And we're going to quickly boot back to the first tenant's image. And there we go. 26 minutes, 19 seconds. We've booted CentOS 6. And this is the original tenants. So this is really powerful. This means that you can share this hardware between users quite quickly. And we are working to allow other types of technology other than Ceph or iSCSI. But for now, for this first implementation, that's what we're using. And so besides this, just the future of the project. So some of these packages the plugins are getting hosted by the Foreman community right now. And M2 will soon be packaged, very soon be packaged for easy installation. So you folks can give it a try. Now, if you do want to check out the code, if you look up the Foreman M2 or the Smart Proxy M2 plugins on GitHub, you'll be able to find the code there. And also, if you want to look at the M2 code, you just go to the CCI-MOC repository, and you can find the repo called M2. And that's where you'll be able to find the code to check it out. All right, well, thanks, folks. That's all I have. So please let me know if you have any questions. And I'd really love to help anyone who wants to try this out. It's really exciting. Thank you.
This looks really nice. We have one question from Raul about how the host sends its information to Foreman in this case.
Oh, so in this case, when I meant the host sending their information to Foreman, I just meant during host creation, when you fill out all the forms, when you enter your network information, your MAC address, when you enter which M2 image you would like to use, that sort of thing. That's all I meant by host sending their information.
Great, thank you. I don't see any more questions right now. So we're moving to Kavita about searching for all instances of packages in the repo.
Thanks, Ori. Hello, everyone. So yeah, this is my first demo in the community. So I would like to wait. I'll just sharing my screen. Is it visible to all?
Yeah, we can see it. Maybe make it a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Okay. So before I start, I just want to mention that I have created some test data to demonstrate this. So I created one product zoo, and in that I have the repository with some packages, and then I created the content view. And there is two versions. One is promoted to a dev environment, and the second one is for the library. Here you can see the difference, like there here it's 32 packages and here is the 31. As I have deleted one package called as a beer. So if we go to the packages, if I search with this, so we can see here is the package and there is a repository tab here. So it's a very small change, but the user wants to search all the packages in all the repository. So previously what happened is there is no option to select all the environments and all the content views. So now we have that option. We can select all the environments and all content view to see like whether that package is available in all the environments and all the content views. So you can do the possible permutations. Like if I select a dev environment and then it search for all the content views. If I select the library environment, then it won't show any repository. As you can see that package is not present under the library. So if I choose the dev and sorry, if I choose this one, and if I filter out like this, so it gives no result. But if I select this content view, then it will show the result. And the same filters we have again applied to the errata page, because there also file. So I guess it's for the errata page, but currently I don't see records in my database. So, but you can see the similar filters on this page. So yeah, that's all about from my side. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for joining the demo. I don't see any questions right now. So we'll continue with Mark. Mark, you have two things today. Do you want to start with template inputs?
Yes, thank you very much. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen by now. So template inputs. This is something that was added because of the report templates, but is actually available for all the templates. So first, let me understand the reasoning behind that. So maybe you remember when we demoed the reporting template some time ago, when I clicked this generate button, I got the report generated. Now there's an additional step where I can actually set some values to customize the outcome of the report. Now, if I just click submit, I would get the report for all hosts. So I'm just going to save and show that here. But I could also specify the host search syntax. So I could do something like domain is example.com, or in this case, all my hosts are on the same example. So I can search for host which have Foreman in its name. So when I do that, and I see the resulting CSV actually has changed. So this is basically the way how we can now customize the reports. Now, how that works, if I go back to the report templates and look at the template form, let's say I go into this one. One thing that you might notice in here is the new tab input or inputs. This tab was added to all templates. Before, you might have seen that for job templates in remote execution plugin, but we now have that for every template. And to use that, you basically just create a new new definition in here. Since this template is locked, I can't define more inputs. This is one of the templates that we see by default, and this is part of 120. So in order to demonstrate it, I'll just clone this template so you can see how it works. Right, so I'm just going to save that. So this is going to be the new clone. And if you want to further customize that, here now you see the form is unlocked and you can add additional inputs. So these are basically formal inputs that this template requires in order to render. So you can, for example, add something like include managed hosts. Then you would normally choose the input type. For report templates, we limit that only to user input, but I'll talk about these or more types for other templates in a moment. I can mark this as advanced field. I can specify options like yes, no, and provide some description. Should we include managed hosts? Now, once we define this input, we could actually use it in our templates or in this template specifically. So we could do something like that, like this. On this line, we would skip this report if input with the name, and the name here is the important thing. So it's better to just copy the whole value. If input with this name is yes, and host, which is the local variable in this iteration, is managed, for example. You get the idea. I don't want to use it in here, but after you submit that input definition, when we try to render this form or this report, so it was this clone, you will see that the form is now generating the form based on the input definition. Since I made it advanced, it's hidden by default, but you can look at here. Here are the values that we defined, and here you see the description that we provided for that input. So this way you can basically formalize the inputs for the template. Now I said this, or before I go to that path, one more thing I wanted to mention here. You see 4 templates that we ship by default in Foreman. Actually, 3 of them are only seeded or shipped, or you will see them only if you have Katella installed. But they live in the Foreman core. So if we look in more details in here, how it looks, you may notice some changes in this metadata. Metadata is a comment which is on top of every template we have. We have this template inputs definition in here. So in case we change that in future, inputs can be created. So this is the way how we actually define them in those templates. And there's also one other thing that Tomáš Strachota was working on. We basically introduced the requirements for each template. This is also applicable to all templates, including provisioning templates, partition tables, job templates. And you can basically specify that this template requires a specific plugin, and you can also define the version. So you need to have Katella 3.9 in order to get this template seeded. And since this is an array in this YAML syntax, here's the dash, so you could add more of these requirements. So if you have 120, or once there's going to be RC1 for that, and you will also have Katella 3.9, you will have all these 4 templates available. Now, when I mentioned that for provisioning templates, I wanted also to show a potential future. So we have this inputs tab in our provisioning templates. And if you're familiar with the Kickstart templates, you know that we have these supported kind of parameters. So for example, you can set enable EPEL to true or false through host parameters or parameters in general. So this might be actually a way how we can formalize what this template needs, because we can have these input definitions. And for provisioning templates, we support 3 different types. So the source or the value source can be either a fact or a variable or a Puppet parameter. In case of Puppet parameter, you would specify the Puppet class name and the name of the parameter. For variable, is just the name of the parameter. And if we actually update our templates to use these inputs, then when you have the host form, we could display a nicer UI and let the user know what exactly can be configured, because right now people just have to know that if they set a host parameter enable EPEL, then it will have effect somewhere later in the template. We also moved the templates to the commit templates repo, so now you can find all the report templates in there. If you want to submit a change or submit a fix, or even share your report that might be useful for anyone else, you can just put it there. And if it requires a plugin, just use the requirements. These templates will be synced to the Foreman core and seeded on new installations. And that's it for inputs, I think.
So I actually have a question. could you use the inputs with the require? So you'd require a plugin, and then you'd put an input, like if you have this Puppet parameter, a Puppet parameter could create the requirement for plugins that you need, or their version, or something like that?
So if I got that question correctly, unfortunately, it is not possible because the requirements are actually on the template level. Well, this one is not a good example, but in here, I basically specify the requirements for the whole template. And if I got that correctly, you wanted to have the same condition for inputs. So one input would be shown only if a plugin is available. This is currently not possible, though I can imagine it could be added in the similar way. So we would just enhance the metadata that are for inputs.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. So we can move to your second subject, skip VM deletion and hopes delete.
Okay. So this is about one additional setting that we added under the provisioning tab in here. And by default, your system will, or your Foreman will work the same way as it worked before. But there were a lot of users who wanted to change the way how we dispose or delete the hosts or VMs. This is the new option, which defaults to yes, and basically says whether we want to destroy associated VMs when we delete the host in the Foreman. I already changed it here to no, meaning if I now go to the host page and I want to delete some existing host, let's say this Leonard, which lives on my local libvirt, when I click delete in here, I get the confirmation. This confirmation text has changed a bit because normally it would say all the VM and all its disk would be deleted. Now, based on this setting, we also change this message. And once we actually delete it, I could also show it here. When I click OK, the host will be deleted in Foreman, but it should still remain on the hypervisor. This should work for all the computer resources the same way. We just skip the deletion step. This way, you can keep it as a backup if you want to restore it later. Obviously, if you pay for usage, like on some cloud, this would leave the machines in there. It doesn't even power them off. So it's up to you to make sure that they are no longer running and delete it if you want to save, let's say, space on the storage. And that's it.
I don't see any question about that in the time being. But for me, at least, that sounds very helpful. I've deleted a few VMs and wanted to recreate them, so it was a little annoying. And we'll continue now to Aditi, who will be talking about the help text for templates.
Thank you, Uri. So am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a small change that has been made. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, we can see it.
So this is hello everyone. So this is a small change that I have made under the operating systems page. If you select hosts and operating systems, so I have currently one operating system here, and the edit page appears, under which if one goes to the templates tab. So earlier there was no information or the purpose of the template mentioned. So now if you just click on the info label, you can see the different kinds of help text for every template which is present or which is associated with the operating system. So this is a small change here, and this is also helpful in case of any plugin that is enabled. For example, currently I have a discovery template, discovery plugin enabled for me. So this will also show the help text for discovery template, discovery plugin. In near future, I'll be planning to also integrate the same thing or bring the same feature for boot disk template also. So the same help text now can also be seen if I go to hosts and provisioning templates. So the kind column here was not a hyperlink. I mean, there was not a link here. It was just a simple text label. So now if you just hover over it, you can see the same help text that was present under hosts and operating system templates tab. So if I hover over these, the help text can be seen. And this link is for the purpose, if I click on this, I have a search query which is provided for this link, which filters out all the templates which belong to the template kind provision. So this is a small filter criteria, and this is similar for every other template kind. So in case of, for example, finish template, so the kind equal to finish search query is fired, and I can see the filter for finish templates. So I guess this is it for now. I have this small change. So,
thank you. Looks great. I don't see any questions. So Kavita, we're back to you again with the Audit UI using React.
Yeah. Thanks, Uri. Let me share my screen again. Hopefully it's visible.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Yeah. So this is the new UI for the audit page. Before telling all the changes, I would like to thank Marek, Amir, and the Ohad for telling me about for the React, because this page now we have implemented using the React.js. So you can see these are the records, and previously we have the navigation to see the further details of the audit records. But here you can click and you can see the expandable view, where you can see the column changes, like what column change added, or the value added to that column, or in the update you can see the changes of the columns. Here you can see if that particular audit record is related to the provisioning template, where you can see the template difference here, like what line, what change in that template. So this is the one thing. The second one is we have added the filters for this. Like if you go to here, you can filter the audit records for this particular users. And again, we have added the search filter on this. If I click here, then it will list me all the audit records for that particular resource. Oops, sorry, something I went wrong. Just double check. Maybe that record is something invalid. So here there is only the single record for that user. Here again you can expand and see. The second thing I want to show is if I go to the host so we have these 3 records for this host. So you can see we have added the host details button, which was there in the old screen, but we have added here. So you can click on that button so that it will navigate to that particular host. So I'll come back again on the audit page. So this is the major change for this page that we have converted into a new React component. So I hope all the users will like that. Thank you, Uri.
Thanks, Kavita. I don't see any questions right now. So we'll move to Chris with Katella Remove and Mounted File Systems.
All right, can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear me, Ori?
Yeah, we can hear you. Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, you're fine. So the first thing I want to show is the VMware update that I did, and then I'll do the demo of the Katella Remove. So right now, if we actually look at, if we build a host with the web UI, this is the parameters that we pass to it. the first block there. If you can see my screen, I'll make it a little bit bigger. And the second piece is actually what we need to pass into the compute attributes when we pass in the information with the hammer. If we look right now, this is a 6.3 box, or a 6.4 box, sorry. If I do hammer host create -- help, we don't actually have all those attributes. So we kind of have to guess back and forth. So what I've done now is I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this tab. If I do hammer host create -- help now, all those parameters are actually in there now. So those can be tab completed as well. And also, if you don't want to do tab complete, you can use it for reference as well. So it makes it a little bit easier for a user who's using Hammer CLI for automation. And also, you know, my view on it is that Hammer should also be able to do the same thing as the web UI does. So that was one enhancement I added. The next enhancement I added is Katella Remove. Basically, is basically a script to take down Foreman and Katella out of a RHEL or a CentOS machine. And before my change, if we had Mongo, Postgres, or varlib pulp on a mounted file system that other systems may be sharing as well, we would just remove that completely, which is never a good thing. So I've modified this Katella Remove script just to make it a little bit smaller and not take forever, just for the sake of the demo. But I do have 3 mounts. I have varlib pulp, varlib MongoDB, and varlib Postgres on here, and you can see them all right there. So I'm going to go ahead and run Katella Remove and show you the new changes that it does. I also have added colors to it, so a user is like, oh, hey, it's red. I need to actually pay attention to that. So we're going to go ahead and hit yes. We're going to go ahead and remove it. So I kind of made it mirror the installer. Red for important, yellow for we're doing things, and then green for finished. So I'm just, I've basically, out of this demo script, I've removed the RPM because that takes a while. So we're just going to stop the services, remove some files, and then we're going to, it should error out on the actual mount points. So yeah, so you see now, before it would have just said finished and removed everything. Now we're actually looking and saying, hey, those are mounts. You need to remove those manually. So it lets the users take care of stuff so that we're not being destructive. And that's all I had.
Great, thank you. I don't see any questions right now. So we can move to Andre with searching on hosts.
Hi. You should be able to see my screen. I have a very short... No?
Yeah, we do see it.
Oh, great. I have today a very short demo about searching. I added a couple of search definitions for the compliance reports. You now can search the reports based on the rules they contain. You can search by rules that failed or that passed, or simply if they contain a given rule. All you have to do is just type the query with equals and then the rule name. But more importantly, there is also another enhancement that actually allows you to search for hosts that have a given rule in a certain state. So as you can see, there is a new actions column, and you can search for hosts with this particular rule, and you can display the hosts that currently have this rule as failing or passing. As you can see, this is now passing for the offshore base. So let's take a look for, let's search for hosts that have this rule and are currently failing. So they should load. As you can see, there are 2 more hosts that have this rule and currently are failing. You can see as well that this is the yet another scoped search query. And there is the rule name, which is quite long. That's why we have the buttons, so you get easily redirected to the results. And that's it.
Thanks. And thank you for everyone for being considerate and on time today. Our last demo is the search box and autocomplete changes by Buzz and Ron.
Can you see our screen?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm moving to the presentation. So my name is Boaz, and with me is Ron.
Hey guys, nice to meet you all. My name is Ron Lavi, and I'm a software engineer on Red Hat.
And today we're going to talk about the new search bar component. But before jumping into it, I would like to talk about moving the hardware models page into a single page application using React and Redux. The main idea here was to take a simple page, such as the hardware models, and turn it into SPA. So anyone from a plugin owner to a feature writer in Foreman that wants to, for example, to write a UI from scratch that only uses React and Redux could have a good reference point. Now, right now, right now we all are almost done with the first phase, which is basically breaking the index page of the hardware modules page into small chunks of React components. And the search box, which what we are going to talk about today, is already moved to React and is in 1.20 RC1, and also the pagination was moved to React. And the next component is the table, which also brings a new API to it. But the table is going to be only React on the hardware models page. Anyway, you can read more about it in this course. We have a thread called Move Hardware Model Page to React, where I put links to PRs related to that subject, posting status, what's going on, updates, and so on. You're also welcome to review the PRs on GitHub. We would love to get your feedback, your ideas, how it might help you, and so on. And with that, I will pass the mic to Ron.
Thanks, Buzz.
May the demo gods be with you, my friend.
So now I'm going to demonstrate the new search bar that I guess most of you noticed the new features. First of all, we have this slash icon, which means that when you press slash, you can focus the input. As you can see, the same user experience, we kept the same UX. So if you can search, the same. Now, let's say you want to press the search button. We had a new shortcut that if you're lazy like me, you can just press enter and it will do the search. Now, I want to show you some of the Redux lifecycle. One moment. Reset the page. Let's filter the actions we want. As you can see, we got initial params from the URL, like the controller, the model, and the search query, the name, which updated here. You can see that when I focus, a new request will come. You see the trigger to the change, and you can see the success and the new result. And now I'll show you some of the code. So if you want to use it, it will be very easy for you. And you see there is mount search bar helper here, and that provided an ID of the wrapper element. Now, when we go inside the mount search bar helper, you can see that we use this ID as the wrapper and render the search bar component. We can also You can also disable the bookmarks or disable the key shortcuts and play with all these properties. And here, all the default params from the URL arrive and move to the React component.
Okay, back to me. Just a second, let me move back to the presentation. Here we go. Okay, so now what is our plan for the future? Right now, because we were talking about the search box component, we basically want to see where else it fits, especially places that are not very user-friendly. For example, right now, Ron is working on using it in the filters form. You can see the PR right here. Loading too slow. Still work in progress, but we're getting there. Also, another place that I think it could be useful is in the trends page. I saw that there was a thread about that the trends are not usable, which basically what happens is that they have a lot of a huge amount of facts coming from their hosts, and it's very hard to create a new trend out of all these facts, because when the page is loaded, so is the facts, and it makes it very slow and very hard, and you cannot do anything. So basically, implementing or using that component there might help a lot and improve the user experience at all. Also, anywhere else that you think this component can help and it makes sense to use it, we would like to hear, or feel free to contribute code and use that. And that's basically it. Any questions?
We have one question about, can we use the new search bar in plugins?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think it's a good idea that I will write a tutorial, or I can show it another time. But the procedure is very simple. Like anything that you're using, like the way that you're using the breadcrumb bar. That's how the same way you're gonna use it in your plugin. But I think it's a good idea to show it in another session, because it might take me another 5 or even 10 minutes. To be honest, it will take me 10 minutes, I guess.
So I hope you can join next, Owen, and show us how you do that.
I would love to.
Also, one thing that I wanted to mention, like I really like this new search box, and there is still some work that needs to be done. But if you think about the template inputs that I showed today, it's a bit sad that we need to pass the search syntax manually in there, and there is no up to completion, even though it's the same kind of a search syntax that we have on, let's say, host page. So there's some work that we need to make to template input, so we could define this is related to host resource, and it can be searched. But then I would really like to use this component on this page. It would improve the user experience greatly, I think.
That's great. I'm glad to hear.
Great, thank you, and thank you for joining the demo. Since we actually have a few minutes left, we can move to Tomer to talk a little bit more about 120 RC1.
Hello. So those of you who have been following this course know that we are currently in the process of releasing 120 RC1. Originally, we had planned to release it at the end of last week or early this week, but we did run into some issues with the installer that we are currently working on. We are hoping to have it released by the end of the week. So we would really appreciate any people who can test the release candidate to make sure that 120 is a solid, stable release. We plan to do another RC probably next week, which will hopefully be the last one. and aiming to release the final version of 120 sometime around the middle of November, assuming no significant regressions are found. So your assistance in testing the RCs is very appreciated in order to allow us to have a stable release. And if you happen to speak a foreign language which isn't English at a high level, this is also a good time to contribute via the translations. There is a post about that on Discourse as well. And thank you, everyone who's taken part in making this release available. That's it.
Thank you, Tomer. No other questions have come up so far. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and see you next time.